Welcome to another edition of TechXY Turbo. My name is Frank Gullo, and I am your host. Today we're joined by Jessica Copeland. Jessica is a renowned expert in data privacy, cybersecurity, and artificial intelligence governance. As the chair of the firm's cybersecurity and data privacy practice, Jessica provides strategic counsel on data protection, compliance, and emerging technologies. With deep expertise in navigating the legal implications of AI, she helps businesses and legal professionals understand and adapt to evolving tech landscapes. In this episode, she shares her views on AI's role in security, legal transformations, and the digital future. Jessica, it's really great to have you here on TechXY Turbo. To start out, can you tell our listeners a little about yourself and the work you're doing today?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have a good conversation with you about AI. Jessica Copeland. I'm a partner at the law firm of Bond, Schoeneck & King in Buffalo, New York. Born and raised actually in Long Island. I don't have the Long Island accent, but I did once. And it wasn't AI that got rid of it, surprisingly. In my area of law, I like to say that I'm a technology lawyer. I actually started practicing law in the patent space, handling patents in the IT and communications sector. And that was a natural segue into what I do today, which is data privacy and cybersecurity compliance work, incident response work, and now artificial intelligence governance. And we'll talk a lot about what that means going forward in the conversation.
Great. So it sounds like your work spans tech, legal, compliance, and a number of other things. How would you describe your relationship to tech yourself, though?
Well, personally, I've always been a proponent of staying up with advanced technologies. That's why I enjoyed going into patent law, to be honest, because I was always working in cutting edge technology. When a company invests money in a new innovation, they file for patent protection. And so it kind of put me right at the beginning phase of many launched technological solutions.
Right. So part of the purpose of this podcast is to inform listeners about tools we use. To start, what are some of your go-to tools that you're using today, particularly anything new that you've been trying for the last few years?
In terms of hardware technology or software technology?
Tech tools, AI tools, applications, apps.
Apps. So since we're talking about AI, I will say that as much as there are concerns about using freely available AI solutions such as OpenAI's ChatGPT and Google Gemini, I have been indulging in those applications for personal use in a way that does not convey confidential personal information. And the reason that's important, obviously, is because anything that you enter into those little chat bots can be used to train their model and will also not be protected from a secure posture. But I have been using it, to develop sort of a calendar of events or organize certain items in my personal life or professional life when it's not containing confidential or private information.
With your frontline experience, what are the most significant cybersecurity threats that businesses should be most concerned about right now?
Well, it seems that the uptick in ransomware attacks is actually tied mostly to exploited phishing campaigns. And so what that means is you receive a mock or a fake email that is purporting to be from somebody that asking for, urgent transfer of funds or asking for you to check out this document and brings you to, a Box account and you enter your credentials, unknowingly giving your credentials to a threat actor. And that is considered exploited phishing attack. I think that has been actually a study recently indicated that phishing attacks and business email compromises are the top source of cyber attacks in the last year. And I believe that what we're starting to see is while artificial intelligence adds just another layer of an advanced technology that can facilitate cyber criminal activity. And what does that mean? So I'm sure you've heard of deep fakes. And so I'm going to segue a bit from phishing emails to deep fakes because they are somewhat related. What we're now seeing is you receive a phishing email and it says that, your computer needs to be updated. Can you click on this link? And then you'll get a phone call purportedly from your IT department, and they've been able to mask their phone number, make it sound like it's from your IT department. And they ask you to enter your credentials or actually accept this remote desktop application right onto your computer. And now they're on your computer and they're navigating and they're dropping malware. We could talk for hours about different attack vectors, but I do think that's the primary risk that companies are facing at this point in time.
Great. And for those who are unfamiliar, deepfakes often is fake video. And just this week, Jessica, there was an interesting report from the Ponemon Institute, Privacy Security, about how deepfakes are increasingly targeting executives. So a great point. And, kind of segues into broader question about breaches. And beyond reacting to breaches, and when you help clients prepare their incident response and governance plans, what would you say are 2 to 3 really crucial, proactive, both technical and policy measures they can take to help protect themselves from all these threats that you mentioned?
So in terms of the incident response plan, so that plan should certainly have your IR team, so the incident response team internally that you're going to put together. And it should include, if you have in-house counsel, the in-house counsel or outside cyber counsel. And that is intended to protect any investigation as attorney-client communication. And then also, if you have cyber insurance, which I highly recommend that you have cyber insurance, to contact the hotline that's available. I even include the hotline number in the incident response plan because you want to make sure, especially if you're faced with a ransomware attack and your systems are encrypted, that you get forensics that are approved by your cyber insurance coverage on the front line, because they will be able to get into your system sooner than trying to find a vendor when you're in the midst of an attack. Certainly, if you have an external MSP, make sure their contact information is available so that they know what's going on with your systems in case they haven't picked up on it. Now, in terms of how to thwart against these attacks, one, I always say multi-factor authentication it's a baseline. If you don't have it, it's irresponsible at this point. But really more importantly is having a robust XDR or EDR solution, a SIEM solution, so that it can, through various channels, look at your network and environment to understand anomalies. Frankly, I'm seeing the use of artificial intelligence in those cybersecurity measures really advancing. And so, it used to be that you would just get some antivirus. Well, antivirus is like 30 years ago at this point. And right now, what we're seeing is because artificial intelligence learns so quickly and it can identify anomalies faster than any other solution, it's embedded in most of the XDR solutions that you can engage a vendor with.
Great stuff. And this will all be in the show notes, so thank you. And speaking of AI, that was my next topic. And as we consider AI tools to help with both mitigation and support, what would you say are potential data privacy pitfalls and other IP concerns organizations should consider when adopting AI, whether in security tools or in general?
Oh, sure. So in terms of data privacy concerns with bringing on AI tools into an organization, it's critical for your IT department or your CISO to investigate the security stack of what that solution offers and where the data that is being consumed by the AI to where it would be stored, how it's being protected, and very significantly making sure that there is clear language in the contract with these vendors that their model is not going to be trained off of your data. So that, I would say, would be the top 2 things to look at in terms of protecting data privacy. And I'm sorry, Frank, there was a second part to your question. What was it?
Oh, intellectual property. But similar.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So certainly if you are using the freely available AI tools, then do not submit any R&D, confidential or proprietary information of your company. This is something that engineers within tech companies, manufacturing companies need to be trained on, because, they might be looking for a solution and they put too much of that confidential, potentially trade secret information into a chatbot, and it is no longer protectable. It is public domain. The other IP angle with AI is who owns what copyright where. And that is honestly an issue that is not going to be resolved anytime soon, because there are so many pending litigations across the country about whether it's a fair use of copyrighted material to train AI models, or whether that is not a defense. And by uploading copywritten material to an AI tool, that is going to use that information and generate an output that integrates that copyrighted material, is an infringement. So those are sort of two very different tracts of IP that are related to the AI tools that we should all be mindful of.
Good stuff. Thank you. So you gave us some helpful information about incident response. However, in the first 24 to 48 hours, anything you could highlight, particularly common mistakes that firms may make under pressure when they think there's an event that may or may not be an incident? So those first 24 hours, 48 hours, what do you? Yeah.
Sure. Well, first of all, if you're a recipient of a ransom note, don't communicate to the threat actor. Leave that to the experts that you'll hire that do it on a daily basis, and probably even might know the crime family, if you will, of where the threat actor is coming from. So yes, within the 24-hour period, it is critical to make sure you have the most up-to-date backups available to you, and hopefully they are segregated from your network. This way, there wouldn't be a risk of lateral movement by the threat actor. Identifying where the intrusion occurred is not going to happen within 24 to 48 hours. So honestly, just get that out of your minds, because I find that a lot of clients expect to know right away who let this person in. How did they get there? And so it can be a distraction from what the investigation should be. You should definitely take your systems offline, change passwords right away. If you are identifying a potential business email compromise, meaning someone is within your email environment sending mass phishing emails to try to get someone's attention under a legitimate user, the best way to try to fix that is to change everyone's password in the environment. And make sure, in particular, anyone with administrative access to get into the Active Directory changes their password as well, because that's where we're seeing these intrusions navigate to get credentials from the Active Directory, and then to manipulate recipients of emails from legitimate user.
Right. Do we have a sense, based on recent statistics, how many of these attacks are from insiders versus crimes of opportunity or kind of mass campaigns from outside of the U.S.?
Well, I don't know what the study breakdown is, but I can speak anecdotally that I've rarely been engaged on a cyber attack that has been an inside job. It's typically outside threat actors. I mean, there are the occasional rogue employee that sent an email with tons of HR data, but that's honestly rare in what I've been seeing in the last couple of years.
Great. So Jessica, we're in New York State. However, regulations, apply throughout the country. But in terms of New York, with regulations like GDPR, CCPA, New York Shield, and others, like HIPAA and New York DFS regs, how do you advise clients to create a comprehensive compliance strategy that addresses these multiple and sometimes overlapping requirements?
Sure. Well, and the best way is to understand what is the organization's main source of regulation. And that means, certainly in the financial industry, in the healthcare space, it's pretty clearly delineated. And so if you are adhering to the more enhanced compliance obligations that are in the heavily regulated industries, you're likely complying with the Massachusetts obligation to have a written information security plan, which is called a WISP, or New York Shield Act's cybersecurity mandate. And in fact, you're probably not going to have to separately find out, certify that you're compliant with the New York Shield Act if you're a New York State chartered bank, because you're compliant with DFS. So that helps a bit. And I always say you work from the most rigid compliance model that you need to work within. And obviously then you would be meeting the requirements that filter lower.
Great. So let's pivot a bit to technology agreements and contract. I know from your work you review tech software contracts. What would you say are some red flags, or conversely, essential clauses that you look for when you're reviewing data privacy, compliance, and protections within agreements?
Well, first of all, if there's no specification that there needs to have that the vendor has cyber insurance, that's a red flag. If there's a complete disclaimer of any type of warranty of no malware or other type of, the worms. There's like this whole phrase that I always make sure is dropped into our agreements, because if you're going to be providing a client software, then you should be white box checking it before you deploy it into their system. And so being able to provide a warranty that it's not going to deploy any malware should not be a position that a reputable software company would take.
Cool. And you mentioned cyber liability. So moving to insurance, particularly for small and medium-sized businesses, what should businesses understand about the current cyber insurance market and how volatile it's been year over year? And what due diligence would you say businesses should have in place before they engage for cyber liability?
So a couple of things. The cyber insurance industry has been navigating pretty in my view, and I'm not, I don't write insurance, I don't sell insurance, but it would seem like it's a bit of a topsy-turvy environment, if you will, because it is becoming more upside down in that there are more claims than the industry may have anticipated 5 to 7 years ago. And so they're trying to correct that by adding more exclusions into policies, some exclusions that you might not necessarily even understand to mean that they would be able to avoid paying you if there were a cyber attack. So I would recommend making sure that you work with your IT department and potentially legal to understand the language of certain exclusions, as well as at the point of pricing it out. There'll be typically a questionnaire that you have to declare certain security measures are in place within your environment. Make sure the person filling that out understands what your technology resources and your network solutions actually are. Because if there's a incorrect statement, for example, a really easy one is, do you have MFA on all endpoint users? And if you say yes, but it turns out in the throes of an investigation of a data breach that MFA wasn't applied, that's a basis to deny coverage. So it's critical that you have someone with knowledge filling that form out. If you have an external IT resource, if you have an MSP, you should have them working through that with you so that you're accurately depicting what your security posture is. And then the insurance that would work for your company would be issued, and there would be little risk of a denial in the event of a breach.
Thank you. Related, and as a professional who defends clients in data breach class actions, what are you seeing now in litigation? Are the courts focusing on specific types of failures? Are there lessons that we can learn from what you're seeing?
So it probably less so learning it through litigation and more so seeing it through enforcement actions. And I say that because I'd like to pivot more to see what, in particular in New York, the Attorney General has been doing to enforce the SHIELD Act. And what we're seeing is that not only are there financial penalties, but there are pretty prescriptive recommendations and requirements in terms of updating your cybersecurity posture, meaning do you rotate passwords? Do you have a SIM? Do you have XDR? I mean, these are all requirements that are not in a granular way required by the SHIELD Act cybersecurity mandate, but by interpretation are required based on what we're seeing from the New York State Attorney General.
Okay. So, of course, AI is in the news, but so are robots. And I think there's a certain fascination with the future of robots, but robots are in place in many businesses, many manufacturing sites. Any caveats or special considerations for robots that may have software, programming, in IoT, whether they're connected to the internet or not, to consider around cyber?
In terms of whether you want to
in terms of your
implement them
protections and things to keep in mind when you are maintaining robots as part of your business.
Well, I mean, I think you have to think about it the same way that you do just having your iPhone available to you, which, there are certain applications that are listening to our conversation right now. And so when you are, if your company is purchasing robots to work in a manufacturing site, is there anything in that contractual relationship that protects the information learned by the robot? And I think it's a viable clause to put into an agreement to say that no information acquired through the work of the robot can be used by your company and is solely owned by, XYZ Corp that has engaged the robotics company.
Okay. So looking a little ahead, a few years, what emerging tech or evolving cyber threats, such as quantum, we mentioned deepfakes, IoT vulnerabilities, do you think may pose the next major challenge for data privacy, cybersecurity professionals, but also business public at large?
Well, man, that's a big question, Frank. I think we are moving to a place where there will be leverage of AI and robotics in a way that I don't know that necessarily we'll talk about what cybersecurity threats there are, but I think there's threats to workforce. I think there's threats to the labor industry entirely. I mean, if you can replace manufacturing sites with robots, if you could replace fast food cashiers with robots, where are certain jobs going to be? And so, we can get more into socioeconomic questions and concerns, I think, easier than what would the cyber threat be? Because the cyber threats are, although evolving, still the same. I mean, you have cyber criminals that are always going to be ahead of the curve in terms of manipulating AI models or using it to generate malware. And so having to thwart against that is a similar solution. But what do we do at the point in time where we have, a workforce that can't get jobs because it's cheaper and more efficient to have AI tools integrated within your company?
Right. So we're recording this, and just today, reading statistics from the FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center, it said it tallied over 850,000 reports last year for a combined $16.6 billion in financial losses, up 33% from the previous year. So before we think of the future, have we peaked? Have we hit rock bottom, or is there still will this problem get worse before it gets better?
Oh, it will get worse before it gets better. I don't think that we've had enough time to get our arms around how to protect against the advanced intrusion vectors, to be quite honest. I think we're just starting to see that uptick, and it'll probably be maybe another 2 to 3 years before we start to see some leveling off.
Great. Well, Jessica, I've really enjoyed this discussion. We can talk about all these topics more, but any final thoughts for our listeners? Any advice you want to leave them with?
Well, the best advice I have is to remain kind of vigilant in your own personal banking matters and your company's confidential information to protect it in every way that you can, meaning, don't use the freely open available AI tools that seem really interesting and fun to use with any confidential or private information. It seems pretty rudimentary, Frank, but you'd be surprised. There are still concerns surrounding that. And the other piece is, don't fear the technology, embrace it, because it's not going anywhere. And, my take on technology has always been, I want to learn it because I want to use it to make my self better, to make my counsel to my clients better and effective and most efficient.
Where can people find you online if they want to reach out more, if they want to work with you and your firm? What's the best way? Is it LinkedIn or anywhere else?
Sure. So my work email is the best way to get in touch with me, or LinkedIn. So work email is jcopeland@bsk.com. And my LinkedIn page is Jessica Copeland. You can just find me on LinkedIn and message me there.
Great. Well, thank you, Jessica. Had a really great conversation and looking forward to more of this.
Same here. Thanks, Frank.